Alrighty, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Nate, and I'm a little sick, so bear with me here. But welcome back to another weather forecast discussion, this time from March 29th, 2023. Now, as we get closer and closer to Friday, which is our aforementioned severe weather day, we start to get a little bit more certain as to what we could potentially see, as well as who could potentially be impacted. So before we get started, please be sure to hit that like button down below and subscribe if you are new to stay up to date with all the latest information that I will provide here. So with that being said, let's get to our convective outlooks here. This is our day one convective outlook. All the light green areas is just general thunderstorms, so not really expecting too much. Day two, we have a little bit more of a severe risk here within the 1 out of 5s in those dark green. We're talking northern, or I should say north central Nebraska into southeastern South Dakota. We also have central to eastern Kansas, central Oklahoma, and extreme northern Texas. And then we get into Friday, which is our big risk for severe weather across the board. And I mean, it is a massive risk. I found this really interesting on Twitter. Nahel Belgers, or at WXNB_, compared the giant risk for an enhanced risk, our 3 out of 5 on the severe weather scale, with the size of France. That is how large this risk actually is here. But this is a massive area here. We're talking Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, portions of Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, and even into portions of Missouri, as well as the surrounding areas of that could potentially be impacted by this significant wave. And then I want to get into our outlooks past Friday. So here's Saturday, nothing really. Sunday, nothing really. Monday, nothing really. Tuesday, however, something very interesting to watch. A new 15% chance for severe weather was issued over the Ozarks and the northern Deep South and the Ohio River Valley. So something to watch out for with that. So now we're going to do what we always do and take a look at our jet stream, our 500 millibar wind shear, which is about 6 kilometers above ground level. And you can see that our massive low pressure system is spinning off the coast of California right now. This is going to dig on through and move off into the central portions of the United States. And you can see this thing also starts to intensify as it gets there too. Watch this. We're talking Thursday into Friday, big time surge in that wind shear. And look at that, very strong wind shear values at the 500 millibar area. 133 knots. I mean, that is some very strong wind shear aloft there within this area here. We'll move off to the 850 millibar wind shear, which is our low-level jet, or winds about 1 kilometer above ground level. And you'll see here that as we go from Wednesday into Thursday, wind shear does start to increase as you go from the overnight hours into the morning hours. You go into Thursday night, you start to see wind shear increase even more. And then look at this, Friday, you can see this continues to linger on through and even become even more significant as you go from Friday afternoon into Friday evening. Look at that. Low-level jet wind shear values and upwards of about 90 knots. That's about 100 miles per hour. And remember, that's 1 kilometer above ground level. So some very strong winds that are going to be surging on through within this. But I want you guys to note the direction into which this wind shear is moving towards. We have a lot of winds that are moving kind of more towards the northeast oriented like this. Don't really pay attention to this behind the line, because this right here, you can kind of see this little dip right here. You see these little dips and these little isobars. This is your long wave trough, and this is actually oriented more into a positive tilt fashion right here. And so anything in front of the positively tilted trough is really where the actual severe weather could be. And behind that, that's more of the areas behind the cold front or behind your dry line per se. So we have a lot of northeast shear within this area. And why that is important is because if we take a look at our surface winds, or winds actually 80 meters above ground level, which is about 100 feet, give or take. That might be a little bit less than that actually, now that I think about it. But we'll go from Thursday into Friday and then going off into Friday night. I want you guys to kind of see, well, there is your line that starts to develop, your storms. But notice that you have a lot of wind shear that's coming from the south or the southwest, moving off towards the northeast. And what you really need is that wind shear to mainly come from the south. Anything that comes from the southwest is really going to spell a linear mode, more of a strong damaging wind threat. Because if you remember, our winds here at the surface is moving to the northeast, and the winds at the 850 millibar wind shear is moving off towards the northeast. And if you go towards your 500 millibar wind shear, that's also moving off towards the northeast. And so all the winds are moving in the same general direction, which means that you don't really have a whole lot of spin in the atmosphere. It doesn't really veer in a clockwise fashion, and so therefore you can't really get the sustainment of supercell. So unless if you have something similar to what the NAM says in the open worm sector right here, I'm talking central Illinois into portions of western Kentucky, western Tennessee, northern Mississippi into eastern Arkansas and eastern Missouri, the stuff that's going to be along the line is going to be very gusty. We're going to have a lot of strong damaging winds associated with whatever is on that line, and the stuff out in front of it probably could be more of your tornado threat. Now, to kind of quantify the streamwise vorticity within this environment, we're taking a look at our 0 to 3 kilometer helicity, which is really going to kind of give you a general idea as to, well, how much spin there is. So you see here on Thursday into Friday, I mean, there's a plethora amount of spin across the board, but the main reason why we have a 1 out of 5 in the severe weather scale tomorrow is because we have a huge limiting factor in place to where warm air cannot rise. And believe it or not, you're actually going to see that here within our convective available potential energy in a bit. But as we transition from Friday morning into Friday evening, you'll see that we do have some spin in the atmosphere, but it's kind of splotchy in some spots. You see this green area and then the yellow-orange, stuff like that. And then we also have another band of yellow-orange over here, southeastern Missouri as well as eastern Arkansas, and that'll head off into the northern Mississippi, western Tennessee, western Kansas, and southern Illinois area. So realistically, we got two main areas to where there's probably going to be some strong severe weather. We have the area that's near the triple point, which is up here in northern Illinois, southeastern Iowa into northern or northeastern Missouri, and then, of course, heading back down into central Illinois. And then we've got another interesting area here that I think might actually be even more intriguing than the one to the north. The stuff that's in southeastern Missouri into central and eastern Arkansas, northern Mississippi, heading off into the southern Illinois, western Kentucky, and western Tennessee area. That is going to be very, very interesting to me as to how that all can actually form into a tornadic threat. But you can see as this continues to move about, I mean, that's when your wind shear starts to increase. You start to see a lot more of your vorticity across the board. And of course, I mean, wind shear is not going to be an issue. You've already seen how strong the low-level jet and the upper-level wind shear is. Just can it all come down together into some form of spin in the atmosphere and produce tornadoes? At minimum, though, I mean, it's going to be a massive windstorm that's going to move on through. So moisture content, let's see dew points here. Why are dew points important? Well, you can't have thunderstorms if you don't have moisture. And in this instance, we do have moisture. We do have some decent relative humidity values. We'll go off into Friday afternoon and a Friday evening, and you kind of see here that our dry line and or cold front, well, actually right here is more of our cold front. Here is our dry line. Your cold front kind of lags all the way over into southeastern Minnesota. But you see that your cold front slams through here right into northeastern Missouri, into the Iowa and Illinois areas. This is going to be probably where your significant winds are going to be. Within that line right there, how that cold front just slams into it is really going to be where your significant winds. I'm expecting hurricane force right within some of those areas. But you notice down south, we got a lot richer in that moisture content down there, and we still have a dry line setup. We still have storms that can form off of that, so we still have a little bit of forcing with that, and that could probably be a bit more of your classic supercell tornado threat that could exist within those areas. So that would be something to really watch, in my honest opinion. How that will evolve and if storms can actually form off of that, well, you'd need a lot more than just, moisture to do that. You need something to really force it to convect and be able to sustain. And we'll see how that gets to it. We'll have answers for that more than likely in tomorrow's video. So we're going to look at our convective available potential energy. This is looking at Thursday. And I mean, yeah, there's not really a whole lot. I mean, there's not really a whole lot of energy across the board in some of these areas. So now you kind of know the reason why storms really don't do a whole lot in this environment with Thursday. I mean, they have a chance, but realistically, the energy's there. That's more because of how there's a warm air inversion aloft, meaning that if you have a lot of warm air at the surface and then you have a lot of cold air aloft, If you have warm air that wants to rise and cold air to sink, that is your environment over here. That's where your convective available potential energy is. But if you have warm air at the surface and then you have hot air above, the warm air is treated as cool air, and cool air always wants to sink. It always wants to go towards the bottom, and that warm air isn't allowed to rise over the hot air, and so therefore, you don't really have a whole lot of energy, if any. So that's kind of the reason why Thursday isn't really doing a whole lot. But you can see from Thursday into Friday, you see things start to pick up overnight. You still see that lingering energy, and then it builds more and more, and my, oh my, look at that. We have an abundance of energy across the board in some of these areas. A lot of cape, and this is definitely enough for severe thunderstorms to exist across this area. So let's talk timings. Let's see when exactly these storms are going to be moving on through from a severe perspective. We'll get to all the other shenanigans a little bit later in regards to timings, but here is Thursday into Friday. You can see there's a kind of a band of thunderstorms in general that form across the board over here. Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. That would be kind of where I would expect storms to form, if not into this area over here. But nothing really convex, and so we move on through into Friday. You can see at the early Friday morning hours, there's your severe weather that could potentially be possible overnight for southeastern South Dakota and northeastern Nebraska. But we'll show you guys how this translates over in from Friday morning into Friday afternoon. Look at these storms, quite an abundance of them actually. You have your warm front right here, you have your cold front right here, you have your dry line right here, and then you got some discrete showers and thunderstorms out in front of it, right there along that line. And so this right here more than likely is going to be your wind threat. Anything that lingers down below it more than likely could be a combination of wind, hail, and tornadoes. This right here probably will be mainly a tornado threat as well. So something to watch out. And then, of course, right here and north of that would be an elevated hailer threat as well. Not really large hail, maybe some damaging winds as well. That's possible. But look at this massive line that develops. This kind of now starts to merge. You have that one line and the second line that form together. And that ends up kind of combining into a very strong wind threat that pushes out across. Look at this line out here still, though. It is still going, heading off into the western Tennessee area. You also have some other storms that form off in southern Illinois into western Kentucky. So that is going to be something to watch out for. Where these storms form specifically is how we could probably determine as to where the most significant stuff would occur. And that would be with the more resolution models, or the higher resolution and accurate models with the HRRR tomorrow. So we'll watch out for that. But regardless, storms will continue off into the overnight hours, heading off past midnight, and it'll move on through further into the Ohio River Valley. Now, as for the other stuff that moves on through, you can see we have a lot of snow that's going to be pushing off across the Great Lakes heading into Ontario. Also, can't forget the northern plains into the upper Midwest as well. Some lingering snow showers that will continue to move on through. A lot of heavy snow is possible across portions of Michigan and Wisconsin behind this, so watch out for that. Freezing rain is definitely possible over here near Ottawa and Montreal, so that would be probably something to note there as well. And then maybe the potential for severe weather over here across the eastern portions of the United States heading off into Saturday as well. Meanwhile, at the same time that is all happening, we have a little bit of some precipitation that could form off over here as a part of our atmospheric river that is going to surge on through into portions of the Pacific Northwest. And then as this continues to move on through from Saturday into Sunday, the potential for some severe weather is also possible here in the southern plains heading off into the western deep south. Meanwhile, big cold air intrusion moving on through into the prairies, heading off into the Rockies as well as the Pacific Northwest. Snow is definitely possible across some of these areas as well, but then as this continues to move on through, we'll see our next wave here from Monday into Tuesday. A lot of snow back behind this low pressure system, a lot of cold air behind this low pressure system, but you can see this massive area here of precipitation indicated in this green, this rain precipitation, if you will, that could indicate some more severe weather that is possible here in the beginning to middle of next week. And I'll play the 500 millibar wind shear just to kind of show you guys how everything moves on through. There's our first system. There's our second system here for Sunday that's moving on through the southern plains. Then you have our third system moving on through on Tuesday. And then as things continue to go about, potentially even something lingering towards the end of next week, sometime around the 8th as well. That would be something to kind of watch out. Maybe 8th, 9th, 10th. I would probably say 10th or 11th if I had a general idea as to when those could move on through. Probably around then. But severe weather season is just starting to get active. It is tornado season. It is hitting right in the heart of Tornado Alley here now. So everyone needs to monitor the weather here now as we are heading off into a more active pattern. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, please be sure to leave a like. Subscribe if you're new. Turn on notifications. Share this with friends and family and on social media. Also follow me on social media. Link will be in the description down below. If you have any questions, please be sure to ask me in the comments down below or ask me on Twitter or Discord if you want a quick and fast response. Other than that, stay safe, everyone. Hopefully I get over this sickness before I start streaming on Friday. But other than that, I will catch you guys tomorrow. So peace out, everyone.